Now, as armed forces, a NATO member, a heavily armed regional superpower, peers through the wire fence at the massacre impending in Kobane in the north of Syria, where gallant, heroic liberation fighters of the YPG are resisting the advance of the fanatic Takfiri savages of ISIL, as Turkey looks through the fence and refuses not only to lift a finger to come to the aid of the people just 300 meters away, but they are stopping, if necessary, killing people in Turkey who wish to get across the border to the aid of their compatriots. It is just about as low as it can get. But I'm asking a bigger question. To what extent is Turkey responsible for ISIL, for the Jabhat al-Nusra, which is the official al-Qaeda affiliate, and the other myriad, hundreds, maybe now thousands of smaller, fanatic, savage groups who are busily ripping Syria apart? To what extent is Turkey responsible for all of this? Well, let me tell you that I was once an admirer of now President Erdogan. I thought he was, for a time, the man who embodied the synthesis between democracy and Islam. I felt that he could blaze a trail that others in the region might follow. He had a foreign policy of no problems with the neighbours, and now he has a foreign policy of problems with every neighbour. He has the blood of 200,000 Syrians on his hands. He didn't kill them himself, but he opened his border, 500 miles of border, so that every last fanatic in the world, from Milton Keynes to Yemen, to Tunisia, to Libya, to Pakistan, to Bangladesh, he opened his borders for people who wanted to come to Syria and destroy it, to destroy churches, to destroy convents and monasteries, to massacre religious and ethnic minorities, to terrorize women, to crucify people, to cut off people's heads, to cut open their chests and eat their hearts and film themselves whilst doing it. Erdogan and Turkey are responsible for that. And because Joe Biden, the Vice President of the United States of America, is a rather simple-minded chap, sometimes when they let him out and allow him access to a microphone, he tells the truth, inconvenient, uncomfortable though that truth may be. And at Harvard University, just the other day, Joe Biden spoke that truth. He said that Turkey had gone too far in allowing these fanatics not only to cross the border, but to cross weapons across the border, to cross money across the border. He has allowed the stolen oil from Syria to be sold in Turkey, some of it unbelievably ending up fueling Israeli warplanes as they rain down death and destruction on the people of Palestine trapped in the concentration camp called Gaza. That's a lot of responsibility. Now, Turkey is very clear about two things at this current juncture. First, that it does not wish to lift a finger to help Kurdish people in Kobane, or the Arabic name for the same town, Ain al-Arab. He does not wish to lift a finger because he does not want the Kurdish fighters to be responsible for a victory over his protégés in ISIL. He may be afraid of ISIL, but he's more afraid of the Kurdish people and their fighting forces. The YPG, a youth section of the PKK, the Kurdish militant left-wing group that has been struggling for Kurdish rights inside Turkey for 30 years. Now, that's one of the things he's sure about. The second is even more dangerous in global terms. Erdogan is saying that he will not lift a finger against ISIL, his protégés, unless there is a no-fly zone imposed by NATO, just like the one that was such a spiffing success in Libya and in Iraq, for that matter, in decades gone by. And second, that he is permitted to invade Syria and set up what he calls a buffer zone, but what I call the annexation of part of the Syrian Arab Republic. The government in Damascus has declared that any such invasion by Turkey would be an act of war, as indeed it would be. And it would be an act of war not just against Syria, but against Syria's allies, who include Iran, Russia, and China. It would be an act of war, therefore, by a NATO member against Russia. Think about that one. So is Turkey responsible for ISIL? Yes. They're not identical ideologically, of course. ISIL is an extreme as it's possible to imagine, an extreme variant of Erdogan's Islamist politics. So I'm not saying that Erdogan equals ISIL. But Erdogan, in order to bring down Bashar al-Assad in Damascus, was ready to facilitate the infiltration of tens of thousands, scores of thousands of foreign fighters and fanatics of all kinds to tear apart his neighbor. No problems with the neighbors. What a long time ago that seems to be. The second question I'm asking is what steps the UK should take to help the Palestinians. Well, I've been fighting for that one for 40 years. And what we should do to help the Palestinians is the very opposite of what we currently do. We should stop treating Israel as some kind of legitimate, even friendly state, deserving of the red carpet whenever their murderous leaders come to town. Britain changed the law so that these murderous leaders could never have an arrest warrant issued against them in Britain for the war crimes and the crimes against humanity that they are responsible for. We should stop treating Israel as if it were a member of the European Union. It is not. It's not in Europe, and it has nothing in common with European social democratic values, which is what we are told are the values underpinning the European Union. Now, there's a big vote coming up in Parliament next week. Many good people are rallying behind the call for a yes vote in Parliament to a motion which says this. Forgive me if I get a word or two wrong, because I'm quoting it from my head. That this House recognises a Palestinian state alongside Israel. I cannot support that motion. I know that many good people will. Actually, I hope it passes, because the amendment to it is one tabled by the Zionist dead-enders, the rear guard, fighting a rear guard action in Parliament in defence of Israel. But I cannot support it. I cannot support a Palestinian state alongside Israel. You know that the whole territory of Israel-Palestine is smaller than a single park in South Africa. The topography, demography, political geography of that small territory can no longer sustain a two-state solution, which in any case is no solution at all, because it leaves outside millions of Palestinian refugees whom I am pledged until my last breath to fight for their right to return. I don't recognize Israel. I will not put my name to a motion which recognizes Israel, especially a motion which has not a word, sentence, comma about what the borders of this so-called Israel that we're recognizing in this motion actually is. Is it the Israel of 1948? Is it the Israel of 1967? The Israel of 1973, 78, 82? Is it the Israel that includes the occupied Golan Heights? Is it the Israel that includes the occupied Sheba farms taken from Lebanon and held these last decades? Is it the Israel that includes occupied Jerusalem? No thanks. I cannot, in conscience, append my name to such a motion. So when this motion goes to the vote on Monday, it will not have my support. But we'll hear what